Hello students. Today we're going to talk about dividing decimals by decimals. We've talked before about just dividing decimals by whole numbers, and we talked about how the outside number always has to be a whole number. If it's not, we have to turn it into one. So remember, we talked about in a division problem, when you see division, you see, you see the line, and this number on the inside is called the dividend, and the number on the outside is called the divisor. Remember, the dividend is the inside number or the first number. So let's say that you have 8 divided by 4. 8 is the dividend, so 8 would go on the inside and 4 would go on the outside. 2 is the answer, and 2 is called the quotient. Okay, so back to our notes. So when we are dividing decimals, we have to make sure that the outside number, or the divisor, is a whole number, and if it's not, we need to change it. So let's look at an example. So let's say that I have 5.2 divided by 1.3. So 1.3, or the divisor, is not a whole number, that's a decimal. So to change it to a whole number, I have to move this decimal point over 1 to make it 13. Once I do that, so in the whole number I had to make it, or I had to move it to the right once. That means on the inside number, I also have to move it this same amount. If I moved it twice, I moved the decimal point twice. If I moved it 3 times, I move it 3 times on the inside, and so on. So since I only moved it once, I'm going to change this number and move it once as well. Then I'm going to bring up my decimal point in my answer. It's really important to do that right away, otherwise you might forget it. Then I just have to divide. So 13 can't go into 5, so I'm going to put a 0 here. But it can go into 52 4 times. 4 times 13 is 52. So I can subtract and get 0. So my answer is 4.0, or 4. Let's take a look at another example. So here I have 0.252 divided by 0.7. Again, the first number goes on the inside, so I'm going to put 0.252 on the inside and 0.07 on the outside. You can see that I have on the outside a decimal, so I need to change that to a whole number. So I'm going to move it over 2 places to the right. Here, that means I also have to move it 2 places to the right. And then I'm going to go straight up. It's really important that you go straight up and not sideways. Then I just divide. 7 cannot go into 2, but it can go into 25 3 times. 7 times 3 is 21. Subtract and you get 4. Bring down the 2. 7 goes into 42 6 times. 6 times 7 is 42. Subtract and you get 0. So I want to divide until I get 0 or until it repeats. And that's what happened. So I have 3.6 as my answer. One more example. So here I have 64 divided by 8. So 64 goes on the inside. 8 goes on the outside, 0.8. And you can see that I have to move my decimal point over once. But here I don't have a decimal point, which means it's at the end. And when I move it over once, I have to add a 0 to it to hold that place. And so then I'm going to bring that straight up. If I don't put that 0 there, that's going to completely change my answer. So now I divide. 8 goes into 6 0 times. 8 goes into 64 8 times, which is 64. Now, even though I have a 0 here, I haven't reached the end of my decimal point, and I have another number here. So I have to bring down that number and divide it out. I can't just leave it 8. 8 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 8 is 0. Subtract and you get 0. So now I can stop because I've reached the end of my decimal point. So my answer is 80. Thanks, have a great day.